Let us see God through Sthapatya Ved. Yes, that God, what everybody want to see, to realize, to enjoy, to be with. What this God is. Many people are saying so many things, realize God, feel God, experience God. So what this God is? So the very interesting thing is that it is our preconceived notion that we want to see God in a particular form, in particular shape, in particular way, what we are wishing for. So this is something very important. Now, we know that there are 8400,000 yonis. There is Char and Achar Jagat, Jad and Chetan Jagat, animate and inanimate objects in this world. So now, we should try to understand that whatever yoni one belongs to, if one is trying to perceive God, so then that particular yoni, that particular consciousness would like to see the God in that particular form, in best glorified way. So now the question is that when 8400,000 yonis are coming from the same source, so it means the God is what? God is that which creates everything. Which creates everything means when something can create, suppose there is something big of 1 kilometer, then that 1 kilometer object can create 1 kilometer thing. If it want to create something softer, like if gases, then it could be little bigger, much bigger. We can create fume out of one sandal stick in much bigger way. But that is a limit. One object can create something solid, something gas, something in a particular volume, not more than that. But when infinity is there, and there are infinity in a way, when we talk about 8400,000 yonis, it means it's a sort of that there are many varieties there. So if every variety is coming from the same source, then we must realize that that ultimate reality which is creating all these dimensions must be beyond these dimensions, beyond these forms, beyond these qualities, beyond these subjectivity. So if we try to understand this, then we'll gradually understand that what way we are trying to perceive God, we want to see God, we want to realize God. That is our preconceived notions. If we try to realize, experience that ultimate reality which is responsible to create anything, everything, in any way, then we'll try to understand, we must understand that that existence or the source of existence has to be beyond everything, beyond relativity. Because every relativity is manifested and merges into absolute, which is beyond relativity. So it means if we are anticipating to see God in some particular form, then we are doing something which is not right. Very simple. Very simple. If we want to see God in a particular manifested values, that is something very interesting, that there are many layers. If we try to realize God in absolute form, in its actuality, then we'll have to understand that that actuality has to be beyond relativity, beyond all the dimensions, beyond all the qualities, beyond all the color, form, shapes, fragrances, aromas, whatever. So it means that is absolute. So when we try to understand God, experience God, visualize God, we'll have to understand that the source of every creation has to be beyond every relativity. So that has to be formless, that has to be colorless, that has to be odorless, that has to be fragranceless, that has to be qualityless, because every quality comes from that. So if that is bounded by any quality, then it means we are limitizing that. So that source which is responsible to create all qualities has to be beyond qualities. So that is something very interesting, that if we really enjoy, experience, visualize God, then we'll have to understand that that is absolute, absolutely non-relative. And when that is non-relative, then that is formless. There is something wonderful in Sthapatya Ved. It says, Tat Srashtva Tadevanu Vaprishat. It means that created everything and merged into it. It means that is responsible, that absolute is responsible to create everything. It means that formless created form and then merged into it also. When it was creating form, of course, it was very much there, very much merged there also. So that is the visualization through Sthapatya Ved. It says, Tat Srishtva Tadevanu Vaprishat. It created everything, because Sthapatya Ved is what? Tishtati Tistha, Tesham Pati Tisthapati. Tishtati Tistha. Tishtha means to sit. Anything which sits means which occupies a space. Which occupies a space means which is three-dimensional. So anything which is three-dimensional, Tishtati Tistha Tesham, the knower of that three-dimensional value is called Sthapati. That is Vastu Shastri, bigger than Vastu Shastri. Vastu Shastri is part of Sthapatya Ved. The Sthapatya Ved is dealing with anything which is manifested. And that manifested value, when consciousness is established in it, then it becomes real Jagrat Vastu. That is the knowledge of Sthapatya Ved, science and technology of manifestation of unmanifest and establishment of consciousness in it. That is the process when we put some idol in a temple and we do prana pratishtha, right? Then it becomes lively. That is a process of establishing consciousness in it, in consciousness, very lively consciousness in any idol, and then it becomes ready to worship. Then it becomes very lively. Then all the actions, whatever we do with a live child, with a live body, we perform all feeding and, making that idle sleep and waking up, feeding, and all those things. It becomes very live consciousness. And when we do circumambulation of that idol in a temple, that is quantum entanglement, what quantum mechanics says. And then we are quantum mechanically entangled with that consciousness, with that particular energy, that particular deity. Deity is made up of Devadhatu, and Dev means light and energy. So these temples and all these places are not simply places of worship. What quantum mechanics says, we make ourselves quantum mechanically entangled with that particular consciousness which is responsible. We have many deities. So that deities doesn't mean that we have 33 crore devata, 33 crore of devata. How could it be so many when God is one? God is one. that absolute is one, that unmanifested value is one, that non-relativity is one. But when it is manifested, whatever we see all around us, all animate, inanimate objects, all 8400,000 yonis, all these manifested values are also manifested value of that absolute, that relativity, that God. And that God himself is merged into every manifested value. What does it mean? It means when the variety of 8400,000 things are to be made, then what does it mean? It means that every consciousness is governed differently. Every creature has a different psyche, different personality, different approach, different vision, different creativity. So it means if a person is very good artist, one person is very good administrator, one person is very good scientist, one person is very good politician, what does it mean? It means that particular consciousness type, physics and chemistry of consciousness is that which creates that chemical composition in a body that is responsible to create that creativity, that approach of administrator, approach of scientist, approach of musician, approach of politician, and all those things. So what does it mean? That all these variations are governed by different consciousnesses. And that consciousness must be somewhere in the universe which is governing that. And that is codified, that is personified in that particular deity. That is the secret. That is not simply Murti Puja and worshipping a stone. Try to understand the science and technology of this. When we are worshipping some God, that God is embodiment, personification of that particular energy which is governing that particular dimension of creativity, approach, scientific approach, musical approach, whatever tendencies we have in human and in all creatures. So we must try to understand that these deities are not God. God is that ultimate reality, that is absolute. But it is God in a way that God manifests itself in that personification which represents that particular energy which is running the universe. Because if somebody is a musician, very good musician, a politician, scientist, administrator, pilot, or whatever, so it means that particular consciousness is very lively in that. So that's why in Vedic science, every branch has one Ishta Devata. Ishta Devata means what? Ishta Devata means that particular energy which is responsible. If somebody is interested or dedicated in education, the Saraswati is the Devata, is Devi. What does it mean? When we understand the quality of that God, that personification of God in that particular deity, that personifies the qualities which is responsible for that consciousness, to make that consciousness fulfilled, which is related with knowledge, with giving creativity, with all the impulses of wisdom and all that. That is Saraswati. So when we see Saraswati, Ya Devi, Ya Kundendu Tushar Har Dhavala, Ya, what does it mean? Tushar Har Dhavala. That white. White has everything. We know in science that if white ray goes through prism, we get violet, indigo, blue, green, yellow, orange, red. And before that, we know all those things, ultraviolet and infrared, are there in nature. So it means when white ray has everything, then Goddess Saraswati, Ya Kundendu Tushar Har Dhavala, white. So it is. What does it white? What does it white means? What does this white means? White means everything together. Everything together. So when one is going to have knowledge or have wisdom, then he must be well acquainted with 360 degree, all three dimensions. Plus means that consciousness. Similarly, if somebody is interested in business, in Lakshmi, then what is the root of Lakshmi? well ornamented, that red color, that, what does it mean? Gaj, so what does it mean? That stability, and red means that activity, not passiveness. Huh? So that passion, and all jewelry means that consciousness enlivens the luxury, passion for earning money, passion for wealth and all that. So that impulse stimulates the consciousness, which stimulates a person's consciousness to earn wealth, whatever is necessary for that. So we say we have so many types of God. No, God is one, but God has manifested itself in many, many varieties. And that deity which is governing that particular dimension of consciousness, that is that deity which stimulates that particular energy, which is responsible for becoming administrator, becoming businessman, becoming a knowledgeable person, becoming professor, becoming a scientist, and all that. So this is what Sthapatya Ved teaches us, because Sthapatya Ved is knowledge of structure, establishment, all types of town planning, all type of houses, all types of public buildings, all type of temple, all type of deities, iconography, Pratima Vigyan, Murti Vigyan, sculpture. It is all branches of Sthapatya Ved. There is a great knowledge of iconography. What deity has to be made in what proportion, exact proportion of nose and eyelids, and Ganpati, if Ganpati, that is called Tal Man. In what proportion Ganpati is going to be made, what Vishnu, and all. Why all these dimensions? Everything is given very, very precisely. If Ganpati is going to be, we are going to make Ganpati ji, what should be the proportion of everything. If we are going to make Vishnu ji, Lakshmi ji, it has to be in very well defined proportions. Why all these mathematical calculations are there? Because it is not merely sculpture, it is not merely stone worshipping. It is something much, much, much more than that. It is having extremely great science and technology of visualization, realization, experience, stimulation of that particular energy from that particular form, shape, color, astra, shastra, vahan, ayud, paridhan, bhojan, anything, all ammunition, all costumes, or jewelry, or ammunition, all food, all herbs, shrubs, gems related with that particular deity. It simply means that all those things are responsible to stimulate that particular consciousness, that particular energy, which is responsible to create that impulse that stimulates and pushes oneself to go in that particular dimension and achieve that. If somebody is interested in wisdom, one gets wisdom. If somebody is interested in wealth, one gets wealth. If somebody is interested in charity, social work, one becomes social work. And if one becomes a ruler or administrator or warrior, that stimulates and that energy. So that is, if we want to have energy, we take glucose. If we try to have strength in the bones, we take calcium. So try to understand that all these protein, carbohydrate, mineral, vitamins, energies, they symbolize some qualities, they symbolize some strength, they symbolize some type of consciousness, some energies. And all those energies are depicted in that particular form of deity. And that is the knowledge of Sthapatya Ved. And one branch of Sthapatya Ved is Vastu Shastra. So, if we try to understand God through all these things, then we'll try to understand that in Vastu Purush Mandala, the central place is Brahmisthan. And Brahma is that Nirgun Nirakar, an absolute, non-relative. That is open space, open to sky, which nourishes all manifested and unmanifested radiations and coming from celestial bodies and energies and all oxygen and whatever types of unmanifested values we want to have, all types of sun, all type of nourishment. So that is Brahmasthan. It means that Brahmasthan is absolute value. And then we have all different 45 devatas. Devatas means deities. And deities, devata is made up of devadhatu, and div means light and energy. And as in chemistry, we know CuSO4 means Cu means copper, H2SO4 means sulfuric acid. If copper is mixed with sulfuric acid, then CuSO4 is made. Similarly, in Sanskrit, every word is very scientifically made. So Devata is made up of Devadhatu. They means light and energy. So all these Devatas, they tell what radiation we are getting from what direction in what season, because sun is in center and earth keeps on moving, and it is because elliptical, so we have different angle of radiations from sun, from 12 rashis and zodiac signs and 27 nakshatras and all planets. So whatever quality of radiation we are coming in from what direction, that tells the physical and chemical qualities of those radiations, and those are depicted in the form of different devatas, deities in Vastu Purush Mandala. And Vastu Purush Mandala is imprint of macro universe in micro form. So every house has a Vastu Purush. It means it is having, like in early morning sun, when newly born baby starts suffering from jaundice, then these modern doctors, allopathic doctors, they say that expose this boy in early morning sun, and then jaundice is cured, and jaundice is problem of liver. It means that early morning sun's radiation is non-matter, but it creates some matter which creates some chemical and makes our liver okay, and jaundice goes away. Similarly, in afternoon, in summers, 48 degree, that sun is very terrific. It increases your pitta, your acidity, anxiety, restlessness, blood pressure and all those things. So that sun is not good for human physiology. For plant, for making food for plants by photosynthesis through chlorophyll, all that is very good. So these are the variations of energies which are depicted in Vastu Purush Mandala. Every deity is given every 10 degree. There are 32 types of Vastu Purush Mandala. But if we take one example of Param Shaika Pada, that is 8 by 8, 9 by 9. 8 by 8 is, there are different names, Mandyuk, Param Shaika and all that. So this 81 plots, that is Param Shaika, that has every 10 degree, it has having different names. It is divided by 9 by 9. So that is in East, it is Ishan, Parjan, Jayant, Mahend, Ades, Satnam. So what all these things means? It simply tells that in every these 10 degrees, how the property of radiation which is coming from celestial body, it changes. And as we know that early morning sun creates liver. So it means that has the quality to create those chemicals which is responsible to make your body more resistance, more ojas, more nourishment is created. All desired chemicals are generated in your body if you are exposed with morning sun, like jaundice is cured. Similarly, if your body is exposed from southwest sun in summers in India, then your body will become more acidic, more pitta prominent, more anxiety. So it means, and it is also very related to what type of pitta person you are, pitta prominent, vata prominent, kapha prominent. That also affects differently to different physiologies. So all these radiations which are coming from different directions, they have different physical and chemical qualities, and those qualities are depicted by different devatas, deities in Vastu Purush Mandala. So then we must try to understand that this Vastu Purush Mandala, it tells the qualities, physical chemical qualities of radiations of different times on the building. And accordingly, we know, and we have so detailed things, how things are going to be different in northern hemisphere, then what things are to be taken care of in southern hemisphere. So we have details of lakhs and lakhs houses, which is good for every longitude and latitude on this earth. Because we had the details of Chakravarti Raja, the kings who ruled the globe, like Dashrath Raja, Darshat Raja. So we must understand the quality of radiations that is depicted in Vastu Purush Mandalas, and that is the secret to realize God in different form. Because in Brahmastan we see God in absolute value, which is responsible, which has the capability to create anything in any form. So that is Brahmastan, absolute value, non-relative. Then comes the second circle. We have Arya, Mitra, Bhudhar, all those varieties. Then we have another layer, that is outer layer, Ishan, Parjan, Jayant, Mahendadi, Satna, Brish, Agni, Pushan, Vitat, Grakshatyam, all those. Then these are very, very precisely mathematically calculated physical chemical qualities coming from those radiations. So we see in Sthapatya Ved how gradually one absolute, and all these Devata, Arya, Vivasvat, Mitra, Bhudhar, and outer Ishan, Parjan, Jain, everything has its own qualities, physical chemical qualities, how it is going to affect human physiology, how it is going to affect nature, how it is going to affect your Vata, Pitta, Kapha, and all those things. So we must try to understand God through Sthapatya Ved, that how absolute value in Brahmastan manifests itself in different deities. It means then how absolute manifests itself in different physical chemical properties, and gradually when it is condensed, then it converts into matter. As we see that if a baby who is suffering with jaundice, exposed with the early morning sun, and jaundice is cured, we try to decodify it. What does it mean? When newly born baby who is suffering from jaundice is exposed with early morning sun, it means that sun, which is absolute, which is non-matter, creates some matter, some chemical in the body, and that matter is matter, and that reacts with all those chemicals, infections of liver, and fights with it and cures it. And it means that chemical creates some matter, and that matter fights with negativity and bacteria and whatever it is, and cures liver. So this is the secret, how non-matter absolute converts into radiation, solar radiation. That solar radiation gradually converts into matter in the body by reacting with all elements of body, and creates some matter and cures the liver. So this is how the process of unmanifested value manifests itself into radiation, then matter, and matter is multiplied in many forms. Because when it is curing liver, then there are many enzymes, hormones, chemicals are formed. And we don't know how many chemical changes are taking place, and what hormone, what enzyme, what chemical is treating what. It means Eko Aham Bahusyami. That absolute manifests itself, multiplied itself into many physical chemical forms. And through this we can understand God, that how that absolute value manifests itself into many types of deities, devatas. And those devatas is responsible for different activities in our body. It means those devatas are different physical and chemical structure, which is dealing that particular level of consciousness, types of consciousness, which is governing the physiology. So this is what Sthapatya Ved tells you, that how to visualize God. If we try to go inwards, then we realize we go from consciousness to transcendental value. To transcendental value, it means we are going through matter to non-matter. And going inwards, we go to transcendental value and realize that God, and that ultimate non-relative value. So this is the process of going inwards and realizing God. And if we try to go outwards and try to realize God, then we see that how one seed which is sown in the soil, how it gradually grows. And every grain, every fruit, every vegetable, we sow different seeds, and it is manifested in different vegetables and fruits and herbs and shrubs and trees, whatever. So this is seeing God in outerwards value. That how that absolute value converts into itself in various forms. If we sow strawberry, we get strawberry. We apple, then whatever we sow in the seed, in the soil, we get that. So it means if we want to visualize God in inward form, going inwards, I told you, if we try to realize God, see God in its real actual form, then we should go outside and see that we sow different seeds, and that different seeds have different qualities, and that different qualities, physical and chemical qualities, are responsible to react with the same sun, same atmosphere, same water in different way. That is the genetic codification that convert that same solar energy, same water, H2O, hydrogen, oxygen, and same atmosphere, same longitude, latitude on soil, seeds are sown. But those codification of that energy which is responsible to convert same sun into the form of apple, in the form of grain, in the form of strawberry. So it means that is the quality of Devata, deity. Devata, Dev is made up of Devata. Dev means energy. So it means that codification, that coding of genetics in every particular object or seed or whatever we see all around, that is the deity, that is the consciousness which is governing that particular physical chemical quality, and that converts the same sun, same water in different forms. So in outer way we can see God in this way, that we should not expect God when we are seeing a tree, a mango tree. Then mango tree is a mango tree. That sapling, that seed converts into sapling, the sapling becomes tree. And who made it? That same solar radiation, that same water, that same soil, that same atmosphere, that absolute energy which creates sun and soil and atmosphere and oxygen and nitrogen and hydrogen and whatever we see all around, that absolute created those things, and those are responsible to make mango tree, apple tree, jasmine flower, rose. So it means if we want to see God in outer values, we must try to understand that absolute, what we call God or whatever, that manifests itself outwardly in all these manifested values. So all these things are nothing but expression of God. If we want to see God in the form of Murliwala, we see that in Murliwala. If Dhanurdhari, we see it in Dhanurdhari, because we want to see embodiment of those expectation and energies in that particular form, and that realizes, we take darshan of that Dhanurdhari or Murlidhar or Trishuldhari or Dabrudhari or right, Kailashvasi. So these are the embodiment of that absolute value which is manifested in these dimensions. So through Sthapatya Ved, we can understand, we can realize, we can experience, we can see God, an absolute value of God and manifested values of God. All 33 crore devatas, all 8400,000 yonis, all animate and inanimate objects are nothing but manifestation of God. We must try to understand that what God we are expecting to see as. So if we know this totality, this grand unification, this grand visualization, then we understand that everything is God. It is God manifests itself materially in manifested form in many, many varieties. So if peacock is expecting to see his or her God, he or she will visualize God in the form of peacock. Similarly, of course, very glorified peacock, maybe with some crown and, with all. So, but the thing is that absolute which is creating everything relative manifested values is absolutely beyond every relativity. So through Sthapatya Ved, we can realize, we can visualize, we can experience God in its real actual form. And that is the science and technology of consciousness and possibility of consciousness, how that absolute, that is possibility of consciousness, creates impulses of consciousness. Consciousness, eko hambosami, multiplies itself into many, many manifested forms, and that what we see all around. And after a certain period, all these manifested values, they merge into that absolute. And this is the circle of God. That is the circle of Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh, creating and, preserving and not destroying, making it dissolved again in that absolute. So that is the ultimate reality of God, absolute God, Ekoham Bahusami, how it multiplied itself and how it merges itself. That is all Lay and Pralay. So this is the whole circle of manifested value of unmanifested, and again all manifested values are created, and this circle goes on, and this is Srishti, Lay, Pralay, or Yugas and Chaturyugis and about time of Brahman, all those things. So this circle is the complete circle to visualize, see and experience God, how God creates that absolute, creates itself into manifested value and merges into unmanifested value again. So all these varieties are nothing but manifested values of God in different form. So this is a real experience, visualization and knowing and being the God in its actual form through Sthapatya Ved. And Vastu Shastra is a very small branch of it. So this is a reality we must realize, and as soon as we realize this totality, we will go beyond all the tussles and fights and wars and confusions and rivalry and competition and all those small petty things. And everybody will start enjoying the absolute totality in grandest, greatest and widest manner, which will create Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Everybody will realize that all these sects and divisions made by human beings are nothing but very superficial, but actual thing is that coming from the absolute and going to the absolute, and in between whatever variations we created, those are good or bad, one should realize on its own. But ultimate thing is that is the reality, that everything comes from absolute, goes to absolute. So whatever short time we are here, everybody should enjoy physically, mentally, spiritually, in a very peaceful, happy, friendly, affectionate, nourishing to each other in that manner. And that is what is called Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. And that is what is teaching of Vedic sciences, the eternal knowledge which is beyond caste, creed, sex, political, social boundaries. That is the knowledge of absolute which manifests itself Ekohambosami in many folds, in many fields, and again it merges into that absolute. So trying to visualize God, experience God, see God through Sthapatya Ved is the need of the hour for every individual living on this earth, whether the person is a citizen or ruler or administrator or prime minister or president or whatever. Everybody should realize it to make this earth more beautiful, more blissful, more enjoying, more friendly, more affectionate, more nourishing to each other. And this is the ultimate reality of God, and how God itself creates itself into many folds in many forms, and again makes all manifested value merges into itself. So this is the ultimate reality and visualization experience and seeing the wisdom of seeing, visualizing, and experiencing God through Sthapatya Ved.